Hello and welcome everybody to Nats at Night episode 2. I'm your host Trey, and I wasn't sure if we were going to be back with another episode of this, but you guys seem to really enjoy the first one. So I think I was just going to continue until you guys hate it. Before you say anything, I know I need a haircut. Okay, I know it's really bad. All right, it's like a dirty mop. Okay. I tell you what, though, I can do a mean rockstar headbang. Like Dave Grohl circa 2000. But regardless of my gross long hair, we got some Nationals baseball to talk at 2 in the morning. It is officially gremlin hours, people. It's exactly 2 a.m., actually, since I started recording this. Interesting. But we're going to go ahead and start with some general Nats stuff. Just talk about couple of the series that they've had in the past 2 weeks since I last uploaded, and I believe in that time we have finished the series with the Giants, played against the Mets, and we actually won the series against the Giants, 2-1 against the Mets, split with them 2-2, and then went down to Miami, got smacked, but we'll get to that in a little while, and then ended with the Tigers, and we won a series that we played pretty not good and still won the series. That should kind of tell you where the Tigers are at. But we walked like 8 guys in the third game and won, and it was crazy. I'll get to that game as well because that was a Josiah Gray start, and I will be talking about him because he's actually been really good recently. But that start was something else. Anyways, I just watched them play the Padres and win. That was on Wednesday night. It's now Thursday morning. So that's how I'm kind of recording these now, is I'm going to try and give myself a chance to record them later in the week so that I get more, stuff to talk about. So one thing that's been going on with the Nats recently is they've had some sloppy starts, and that has really contributed to some losses or some games that have been a little tougher than maybe they needed to be. But since that Miami series, they've cleaned it up a bit in terms of the fielding. The walks are still a problem, although they've been okay. And Gore was he walked like 4 dudes. Never mind. So I was like, I think they were okay the last couple games, but Trevor Williams was all right tonight, though, so that was good, and the bullpen did good. So let's go ahead and get into our first topic, which is going to be the retirement of a Nationals legend, Anibal Sanchez. I say Nats legend for basically any player who, wasn't actually, a legend, when you think of the word legend, you think of some guy who was extremely good for your team. And Anibal Sanchez was good for the Nats, but he wasn't, a Max Scherzer or a Bryce Harper or Juan Soto or a Trey Turner or anything like that. And so, for some reason in my head, I always call guys that aren't at that superstar level Nats legends, and then, those guys are just those guys. It's just Soto and Turner and Scherzer and Harper. I don't know. But either way, Nats legend has retired, Anibal Sanchez. He had a great career, long career. Was a really young guy coming up, and then had some great years in Detroit. Threw a no-hitter as a Miami Marlin as well. And then, it's a good story because he's a guy who kind of lost. He lost what made him great in his velo and his stuff, and then he kind of refound himself a little bit. It's always a good story where you see a guy struggle and come back from it. And Anibal Sanchez totally did that. He had 2 great seasons to end his career with the Braves and then obviously with the Nats. And then he pitched for us a little bit more. Wasn't as good, but, that's whatever. He helped us win in 2019, and that is the more important part. And just generally seems like a great person. Really family-oriented guy. They were saying on the broadcast that he used to fly back a lot to Florida, Miami, which I believe is where he lives most of the time with his family, so he used to fly back a lot to see them during the season. So that just tells you the family type guy. And he was on the broadcast as well, because it was actually interesting. he was retired from both the Nationals and the Miami Marlins, or because he played for them when they were the Florida Marlins, and he was like doing the talk show circuit, basically walking around, do the radio cast on both teams and the TV cast for both teams. Busy day for him, but it seemed like he had a good time. So congratulations, Anibal, World Series champion. Almost threw a no-hitter in that one game against the Cardinals in the playoffs. That was an unbelievable game. But congratulations on a great career. Won't be a Hall of Famer, although he will get on the ballot. So that he should be proud of that. You know what? Maybe I'd slip him a vote just for fun. Nah, but good for him. Anyways, let's talk about those Marlins. Because, guys, the Miami Marlins are fish kryptonite or something because the Nats cannot beat them. Going back to last year, at the beginning of last year, the Nationals are now 4-18 against the Fish. So that's just, it's not going to get it done. I believe that they've only won one game in Miami during that time. And, it started off okay. It was a close game. Josiah threw game 1 of that series, and he was actually really, really good. I believe he actually made an error that scored the second run, but it wasn't really his fault. If you watch the play, it was kind of a weird play where they tried to turn 2, and he was running over to cover the bag because Dom Smith had fielded it and thrown it, so he wasn't there, and then Josiah jumped weird, and then he dropped the ball. It just fell out of his it was unfortunate, but he ended up giving up 2 runs, but then he locked it down, and honestly probably went a little too long for my liking. I wasn't in love with keeping him in the 7th, and I wasn't in love with him facing Garrett Cooper another time when he's Garrett Cooper's numbers against him are 9 for 17 with freaking 3 homers or something. But he made a pitch, and that's kind of the thing that he's done all year, really. Because if you look at the base numbers, the walk rate and the whip, they're pretty much the same as last year. The difference is that he is executing big pitches when they matter, and he's afforded himself to do that by, getting soft contact more often, because that's basically allowed him to become, first of all, a guy who can get the double play now, and also a guy that isn't going to get, taken deep for the 3-run homer anymore. He hasn't actually given up an extra base hit with runners in scoring position. I believe he's only given up 1 extra base hit with runners on base, and that runner didn't score. So he is just stranding runners, and you don't want to be living on the edge like that. But like I said, his ability to get soft contact now has really helped him out in that regard, because he's not giving up the big homer. And that's basically what used to bite him last year, because the numbers are pretty similar. It's just the difference being the quality of contact that he's getting. So he was great against the Marlins, kept us in the game, and then unfortunately, I just wasted my time talking about Josiah. Josiah is the next segment, and I just see this is what I was talking about with these recording these super late at night, because now I'm just all over the place. Anyways, we're talking about Marlins series. I'll get to Josiah in a bit. Marlins series. That was a game in that series, so it was relevant. He came out after 7 innings, and we actually got the lead back in the 8th to get him lined up for a win, which it seemed like it was heading directly toward a W and a nice start to the series. And Hunter Harvey comes in, and he gets the first 2 outs very easily, and then all hell breaks loose. And unfortunately, he left a 99-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle to Jorge Soler, who promptly deposited it into the left center field seats. So unfortunately, that was a blown save for Harvey, who's been really good this year, and he's still been good since then. That was really the only outing that he's blown up. Hello, darkness, my old friend. And but that was just unfortunate that it came at that particular time when we only had a 2-run lead. And then other than that, the next 2 games were so unmemorable. It's just really bad at bats. That was the thing that stuck out to me. Really, really, really bad at bats, especially by C.J. Abrams, which I know that everyone was pointing out. But luckily, he has righted the ship since then, so it's all fine. He had a really bad series. He did, legitimately, but basically put that he pretty much scrapped it from his memory. So that's honestly impressive for a young player. Because when I say bad series, he was 0 for 11 with 8 strikeouts. That's about as bad as it gets. So, to be fair to all the guys, that Marlins pitching staff is pretty sick, especially when they're firing on all cylinders. And Luzardo came in; he was really, really good for most of that game in game 1, and then Edward Cabrera, his numbers don't match up with his talent level, but he's another super young guy that's got just disgusting stuff. And then the freaking 20-year-old phenom, Yuri Perez, I think that's how you pronounce it, is just silly stuff from them. So if that team ever gets, along with Alcantara, gets them all firing at the same time, I don't really know how you can beat them, because those starters are something else. But that didn't help. The Nats didn't put in good at bats. They could have put in better at bats despite that. But it was a lot of really quick ABs, 1-pitch grounders, or 3-pitch strikeouts. Basically, it was a lot of that, and we didn't score a ton. So although our run differential was only a -4 for the series, doesn't really feel like it. It feels like we got crushed, and that was unfortunate. Luckily, they bounced back immediately and won the Detroit series, and now taken one from the Padres. So that's a big deal. Honestly, I was just hoping to avoid the sweep from the Padres. Now we have a chance to go win a series tomorrow, so let's do it, maybe. But anyways, now I can move on to what I was talking about earlier, was Josiah Gray. I mean, you know what? Whenever Josiah Gray's name comes up, I just gush. I'm just so excited for him, because he's pitching just with so much more confidence with the arsenal he has now, and it's the numbers are showing it now. There's obviously things that he wants to improve on. Like I said, the walk rate and his whip is about the same as it was last year, although the walk rate it's spiked because Josiah was not so good against Detroit. He walked 6 batters. It was one of the worst starts of his career, really. And yet he threw 5 innings and gave up 1 run and lowered his season ERA to 2.65. So that's pretty nuts, honestly, that he was able to do that. Now it helps that the Tigers. I was actually getting angry. I was getting angry at the other team because of how poor they played situationally. There was points in time where Josiah walked 2 dudes in a row, like on pitch, like with pitches that weren't close, and the next guy came up and swung at the first pitch. Matt Vierling, he comes up and swings at this. Josiah basically walked. I think it was I don't even remember. He had 1 strike in that whole sequence. He walked 2 dudes, and Vierling comes up. He's all over the place. He throws a slider. It's not a terrible pitch, but it's off the plate, and Vierling swung at it and hit a little dinky pop up, and then he got out of it. It was crazy. There's another time where another guy swung at a first pitch after he walked a guy. It's just such bad situational ball. So I was getting a little angry at that. But it's funny because it was good outcome wise. But so that wasn't good for Josiah. But other than that, he's been really great this year, and he was actually coming off back-to-back 7-inning outings, which he's never done that before against the Giants and the Marlins. And the Giants start is interesting because on paper it's pretty not good looking. You're like, oh, he only struck out three guys and he walked, I believe, 4 batters. But I think he was actually pretty good in terms of following the assignment. We were up by a lot, and we needed innings, and we needed him to get through 6 or 7. And I think that he realized that after the 3rd inning. He was kind of grinding in the 3rd, walked 2 guys, and then I think from there he was like, all right, I got to just make sure I'm getting the ball over the plate with quality strikes. And some maybe not so quality strikes because you're up by 10 and these guys might just hit themselves out, and they did that a lot. And so he probably got hit a little harder than normal, but I think that he did the right thing by making sure that he got the innings to save the bullpen, because it did help. It did help because that was at the point in time where the pen was really taxed. So he was a big help that day for them. And then against Miami, he went 7 innings and he was a lot better. At the end of the start, he was a little wild at first, and then he found the strikeout pitch in the 6th and 7th inning. So that was good. He seems to get stronger as the game goes on. He seems to be ready to make a pitch when he really needs to. Now it's just about more cleaning it up. Just clean up the walks, Especially the 2-out walks. That's a big problem for the staff right now, is 2-out walks. You're just asking for a 2-run homer. You're just asking for it. It happened tonight. So that's one thing the whole staff, including him, has to clean up, is the 2-out walks. Those are pretty bad. So, but other than that, I can't really say anything bad. Josiah Gray is my all-star for this team right now. So he's like, I know every team gets a rep, but he's legit. I mean, he's the top 10 in ERA, I think. So that's something. Now we just got to see if he can continue to sustain that and improve. I mean, he's still using a new arsenal as well. He's just introduced this cutter and it's a great pitch, but he still has to get used to throwing that. And so as he continues to learn how to do that, and if he can do that and maintain this also amazing pace he's on, that would be awesome. There could be a point where he struggles, but man, that cutter has really been the difference. I tell you what, that cutter. I might do a separate video just about cutters in general, because I feel like they're so useful to left-handed batters as a right-handed pitcher. So, anyways, that was probably way too long on Josiah, but I think Josiah is one of my favorite players. So that's just gonna kind of be how it is. I really want him to succeed. Also, he replied to me in a DM, so that's cool. Anyways, let's move on to this pair of guys that I wanted to talk about. I was gonna just talk about one at a time, but just decided to pair them up because they're both doing the same thing. That is Lane Thomas and Jeimer Candelario, just absolutely raking all of a sudden. Lane has kind of been this whole month. He's OPSing over 1,000 in May, guys, and I'm telling you right now, he was one of the worst players in the league in April, and that's kind of he's just such a weird anomaly to me. He is sometimes the worst player you have ever seen, and then for a stretch he'll be just ridiculous. He's been ridiculous. He has like 8 homers this month. He's like one behind the leader for the month in homers, I think, which is probably Pete Alonso or something. It's crazy. I don't know where it came from. He had zero power. I think he was slugging like 330 at some point. His WRC plus nearly went below 70, and he's totally righted the ship. And he homered yesterday. And he doubled tonight. I mean, so the power has just gone way up. He's slugging like 470 now, and it's crazy to me because he was dead in the water. His defense has actually gotten better since then too. I mean, he was one of the worst defenders in the league by outs above average, and then he still is, but he's looked a little bit more comfortable in right field since then, since he started hitting. I think that's just a whole confidence factor maybe. Once those homers started going, it's like he just hits them in bunches. So, I think that we just got to enjoy the ride while it lasts, because odds are, I'm not going to say it's 100% going to come to an end. Odds are it comes to an end at some point, and he probably reverts back to not being as good. But it's just so weird, because every time I'm ready to give up on him, he does something like this. Every time. It's without fail. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. He can certainly hit lefties regardless, so I guess he has that going for him. Anyways, over to Candelario. Candy's been awesome defensively all season at third base. He's one of the better defenders in the league. He's like 91st percentile and outs above average. And I believe the only guy who is above him, I don't know if he's above him anymore, but they're close, is Luis Garcia at second base. So, wow, believe it or not, he wasn't a shortstop. Who would have known? Literally everyone except for Dave Martinez. Anyways, I'm not going to... I gave Davey props in a tweet, okay? So don't come at me. But yeah, so Candelario has also found his power stroke. He went like 11 for 15 against Miami. He hit a homer. He had like 4 doubles. It was crazy. He was clutch the whole time. And he's been making like... It's so weird. He was not a good defender. Like, he was never this good of a defender in Detroit. Like, even in his best years. I don't know what they did, but I want to know. I really would. I would like to know what they told him, what they worked on, if he figured something out, if they figured something out. I mean, because the dude has been unbelievable He looks like Arenado. And this is a dude who was like, he was like 9th percentile in OAA last year. I don't know. It's crazy. So the change of scenery has really done well for him. Now, unfortunately, for some of you, having brought these two up, there is the discussion of now, do we trade him? Candelario was signed to be traded eventually, and if he is going to continue this pace, he's going to have enough value to where we are going to have to trade him. And that kind of sucks because I actually really like Jamer, but we got to do what we got to do here. So if we have to trade him, that's just going to be something that has to happen. Now, the Lane Thomas situation is a little different. He has, I believe, 2 years of control left after this. And Rizzo and Davey have said that they really like him and they want him to be a part of the future. I think they could probably do well to trade him while he's hot. And I know that there's going to be people that dislike that take, but I think I don't think he's a part of this team like in the future, because he only has 2 years left, and by the time that his 2 years of ARB are done, then you probably have James Wood and Robert Hassel and maybe Elijah Green or something ready to go. And in that case, that's just too stacked of an outfield. It could be possible that those guys don't pan out. I don't know about James Wood, though. Dude, that guy is nuts. He seems like as sure a thing as you can get. But, and Hassel's been great. Hassel's hitting like 320. So it's like these guys are definitely developing down there, and if they continue to develop, their ceilings are just so much higher than Lane Thomas's that you got to consider the trade here. Yeah, I know people might not like that, but that's genuinely how it probably should go. And because you never know with Lane, he's so inconsistent that you don't know if you're going to get this again, and you don't know. I just don't think he's going to be a part of a playoff caliber squad as a starter. Maybe as a fourth outfielder, but not as a starter. Now, having said all that, I still hope that he does great. So if he does stay on the team, he continues to play well, and maybe he is a part of the team. I don't know. But, I think they should consider it, at least, if there is a team that's contending that needs a power bat, or that's trying to contend that needs a power outfield bat, like a Cleveland, perhaps. Their division is up for grabs, but they are not hitting. Maybe they reach out for a power bat. You never know. But that's kind of where that stands. Candelario's gonna get traded, or he should, especially if he continues to play this well. I actually had tweeted earlier in the season about a potential short-term extension with him if they didn't get the offers they wanted, because I felt like, with Kieboom's situation, he's just not been healthy, and he keeps having to take days off because he's hurt something else, and you just don't know what's going to happen with him. And then after him, it's basically Brady House, and he's probably a couple years out still. So then at that point you're like, okay, well, we just kind of have this guy to fill in for a little while. But if he's hitting this well and he actually is giving you enough value, you probably got to move him. So I'll be rooting for him, though. He seems like a great guy. He seems like a dude who is a true leader out there as well. He's always involved with the mound visit. He's always engaged, and he's always really encouraging the young guys. So I like that. But anyways, let's go to our final segment here. Now, I think I'm going to make a graphic for this eventually, but I think what I'm going to do is every single time I make one of these, I'm going to do a prospect showcase. And tonight I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to try and take prospects that maybe you haven't heard of as much, or someone... That's pretty much it. Someone you haven't heard of as much before. But tonight, I'm actually going to feature Cole Henry, who you may have heard of if you are a Nats fan and you've been paying attention to the farm. He's one of our pitching prospects. He had a really good start with the Nats in 21. And then, unfortunately, he got the news that he had thoracic outlet syndrome. And for those of you who don't know, thoracic outlet syndrome is kind of like a nerve I shouldn't even be explaining this. I don't have the definition. I'm not a doctor, but it's like a nerve thing in your shoulder, and it's pretty painful. It's the injury that Steven Strasburg has, and the only way to really alleviate that pain is to remove one of your ribs. That's how the surgery is done, and it's a tough one to come back for as a pitcher, especially guys who are a little bit older that have to get it, like Strasburg. But Cole Henry's young, and he has come back from that surgery, and he has had 2 rehab starts, and he's looked dominant in both of them. The last start he did, why do I keep saying that? The last start he made was against I don't remember who it was against, but he went 4 innings and struck out 6 batters and looked really comfortable. He was touching mid-90s with his fastball. Curveball looked great. So that's really encouraging. And looked really comfortable. He was touching mid-90s with his fastball. Curveball looked great. So that's really encouraging for a guy that I really like. I think that I thought that when it was him and Cade, really, it was him and Cavalli were the 2 guys at the top of our system for pitching. I was honestly leaning Cole Henry. That's kind of where I stood at the time, but then he unfortunately got injured. But now he's working his way back. Still going to be a long way to go. He's rehabbing in high A, or not high A, single A, Fredericksburg. And I don't know when he's going to be moving up. But when he does move up eventually, it should be to Rochester. So it's not out of the question that we could see him this year in the majors, but I would think they'll be very cautious with him, considering Cavalli's also hurt now, and they want to make sure that, one of those guys could be healthy going into the beginning of next season. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about tonight. And the Nats they've been hanging in there. Once I tweeted a couple days ago about how they can potentially go 500 in May, and they still have a chance. If they go 4-3 in their last 7. They will go over 500 in May, which is, I had absolutely zero expectation of even being close to that this season. So yeah, I mean, as long as they continue to battle, they're hanging around, and that's all we can really ask for. They're trying hard. They're putting in the effort, and effort means something, especially for a young team that can struggle at times. But they've been mentally tough. So good job, Nats. Let's see if we can keep it going and continue just to make some noise and be fun. It's been fun watching this year. I gotta be honest. I've had fun, and that's not something I said last year. So yeah, let's keep having fun, and I'll see you guys in the next episode in a couple weeks. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Peace.